I could tell as soon as Danny showed her that this lady was going to be trouble. No, it wasn't that she was a problem, but she was bringing me a world of problems that weren't her fault. That's just the feeling I had when I looked at her at the door. "Hello, Mr. Carter," she asked nervously. I could tell she was married, like most of my clients. "Nick Carter, ma'am." I nodded. "No, not like that boy singer, but sometimes I get mail for him." One of the risks of being a private investigator with a famous name living in Los Angeles. In fact, my father named me after a secret agent from the Job spy novel series. We already had a last name, but my father just called me Nick. Not Nicholas. Nick. Fuck, understand why. I stood up as I spoke and shook her hand. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "Your assistant said you could help me. One of your previous clients recommended you to me." She smiled a little wider, still nervous. "Really?" "I understand. Okay, Mrs. I'm Janine Linder. My husband is Dennis Linder, and he's a psychologist. I suspect he's cheating on me, and I need proof before I file for divorce," she said, handing me his photo. I raised an eyebrow as I looked at the photograph. He looked to be in his 40s with a square jaw and dark hair that was starting to turn gray at the temples. He had bright green eyes that could probably seduce most women. "Okay, ma'am. Do you know how this works?" I asked, and she nodded. "Okay, give me a maximum of 2 weeks, and I will find you the evidence you need. For these 2 weeks, I charge $5,000. Is that okay with you?" "Yes, and half a head, right?" She asked, "Do you have your own account that your husband doesn't know about or doesn't have access to check your finances?" I asked, "Yes." She said, "I opened it a couple of months ago, so he wouldn't know if I hired someone to keep an eye on him. Your previous client says you're the best." She smiled as she handed me a cashier's check for $2,500. "Thank you, ma'am. Tell me how he acted suspiciously if you can. The more information I get now, the easier it will be to track his movements." "Well, it's strange that I even noticed that he's cheating. He spends every night with me and on the weekends with us, too. But sometimes when I call his office to invite him to lunch, his phone is turned off," she said. "Well, his meeting with a client might take a long time," I shrugged. "Normally you'd be right, but then there's the distance at home. He used to be unable to keep his hands off me, but now he barely touches me." Then I noticed the smell of perfume on his clothes. "At first I thought I was imagining it, but it wasn't my brand of perfume," she said. "Some of his clients might have hugged him, but how old is he?" I asked. "He's 44, she said, and I nodded. "Well, I've heard that men his age tend to lose their sex drive after they're 40. Could that be the reason for his emotional distance?" "You sound like you think I'm just stupid," she said angrily. "No ma'am, I'm just trying to understand why you think he's cheating on you. I recognize that the smell of perfume is a strong indicator, but that could be a fluke. I'll take that case, but I also need to know everything. Can you remember how else he behaves suspiciously, except for turning off the phone?" "It always happens right before lunch on Mondays and Wednesdays. Other times he answers right away, but these days the call goes straight to voicemail." "Okay, I got it. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so I'll start my investigation then. I'll contact you as soon as I have something specific for you." I nodded and stood up from the table as she stood up too and shook my hand. "Thank you, Mr. Ken's Carter. I hope it doesn't mean anything, to be honest, but I need peace of mind about this." She smiled warmly. She truly was a beauty, and if I hadn't been married, perhaps I would have considered comforting her. "Anytime, Mrs. Linder. If I don't find anything in 2 weeks, you won't have to pay me the rest of the fee," I told her. This was my guarantee. "Thank you again, Mr. Carter," she said. "Ma'am, call me Nick." Mr. Carter was my father, I smiled, and she smiled back. "Okay, Nick, I'm Janine, ma'am is too formal." "Okay, Janine, I'll contact you as soon as I have something. Danny, my assistant, should have your information, so I'll get your number from her." I walked her to the door and again promised to be there. Communications. As soon as Janine left, Danny came in and sat down in the overflowing chair in front of my desk. Daniela Velasquez has been my assistant for 6 years. Honestly, I would be lost without her, and I think she knows it. She is single, dates occasionally, but not often, and has the most beautiful deep black hair, brown eyes, and a great tan that comes from her Mexican heritage. She has a figure like J.Lo, only with a bigger butt and much bigger breasts. Yes, if I weren't married to the woman of my dreams, it would be difficult for Danny. I may be married, but I'm not dead, and I never touch, well, except for hugging when Danny presses her D-pack to my chest. Okay, Chief, here's what I have for you now. She handed me a file she had compiled online about our goal. Danny is a pretty good private investigator in her own right, and I'm proud to have been the one who trained her. She's a quick learner, that's for sure. Dennis Linder, eminent psychologist. I looked at the file, and alarm bells started ringing in my head. It seemed like a couple of years ago, one of his former patients had filed a malpractice suit against him, but the suit was abruptly withdrawn, with some stale answer as to why. It became more and more interesting. The former patient was a woman, and her husband divorced her shortly after the lawsuit was withdrawn. It was a wake-up call. I had a bad feeling about Dr. David Linder, and my gut usually doesn't deceive me. Danny, dig into this bastard a little more, okay? I have a bad feeling about him, I said, and Danny laughed at my phraseology. Yes, I know. I opened that door myself, and thank you for not taking advantage of it. Anytime, boss. She winked at me sweetly, then went back to her desk to continue searching on Bing about Dr. Jerk. Daniela is worth twice her weight in gold, and I know I don't pay her enough, even though I pay her really well. We are more partners than bosses and assistants. We split each case in a 60-40 ratio, including prepayment. These prepayments, when added up across different clients, add up to more than $200,000 a year. After expenses, I usually have a net $150,000, and Danny is easily $110,000. And this is after taxes. We share a lawyer who provides us with legal assistance on a quid pro quo basis, since we also seem to work for him. His name is Wesley Quinton, and he specializes in marital discord and other domestic problems. Then there is my wife Samantha. Yes, Samantha Carter, born Samantha Stern, so she is not related to Colonel Carter from Stargate SG-1. She calls herself Sammy in common parlance. I met Sammy 7 years ago when I left the company I was working for in Langley, VA, and moved back to Los Angeles. I was an insurance investigator for that company. It was a decent job, but after a client in Paris turned out to be a real asshole, I decided I'd had enough and decided to use my investigative skills at home. I had enough savings to start my own private detective business. That's it. Now nothing can be crossed out. Sammy is a real beauty. Tall, 5 feet 8 inches, which makes her as tall as me when she wears her 4 stilettos. Fiery red hair, sparkling blue eyes, measurements 34C 2436 and legs that reach to the sky. Her Angelina Jolie lips and sexy smile can melt hearts. I met Sammy when I solved my first case for my first client. He threw a party to celebrate it, and I was his guest of honor, and Sammy was the daughter of one of his friends. She saw me and I saw her, and it seemed as if the magnetic force of the earth was pulling us towards each other. We talked and danced and talked some more. I met her father, who turned out to be a good man, and he believed my usual story that I was a former insurance investigator who had decided to become a private investigator. I had some prospects, and during that evening I was able to land a few more clients. That was 7 years ago, and after 6 months of dating and 6 months of living together, we got married in a small ceremony with just her family and a few of our friends. My parents died a few years ago in a car accident while I was abroad and left me their house with the mortgage paid off. I spent 3 years in the Army as a military investigator, then I was recruited by the said company to investigate possible insurance fraud. This is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anyway, I became a damn good detective and realized that I could make good money as a private investigator. So I said goodbye to the company and returned home to Los Angeles. Getting a concealed carry license was like pulling teeth, but it was worth it to carry my dad's old Colt M911A1 pistol. The large .45-8 cartridge is almost guaranteed a kill when fired accurately. This is what I've always been good at. So I walked out to where Danny was selecting pieces of Dennis Linder's life and printing them out for me. Hey, Danny, call it a day once you're done searching. I'm going home. I smiled at her. No problem, boss. She smiled back more than professionally. You know, I hope Sammy understands what's in her house. I think so, sweetie. You know, you'll make someone really happy someday if you ever get settled. I winked at her, flirting a little. No, Pappy, I missed my chance by a few months, she shrugged. I was going to ask her about it, but she had already gone back to her computer monitor. Okay, honey, gather the information, put it in a folder, and I'll pick it up first thing tomorrow morning. Good night, I said, heading towards the door. Good night, boss, she called after me as I left the office. I got into the car and drove home. Along the way, I started thinking about Sammy and how she had been acting lately. Over the past couple of months, she has become somewhat distant, as if there was something on her mind and she wanted to tell me it. But it always seemed like something was stopping her. I decided that when I got home, I would ask her about it until she answered me. I'd be an idiot if I didn't see the writing on the wall. I've seen this quite a few times. The story has always been the same. The wife-husband becomes emotionally distant immediately before or after the infidelity begins. Until now, she would tell me nothing every time I asked what was wrong or if she wanted to talk to me. Why women do nothing so often, I will never understand. I know a few who don't, but most of them seem to think that we men get paid enough to read minds. Sorry, ladies, we are not psychics. Sometimes you need to sort everything out. With these thoughts in mind, I turned onto our street and noticed that a Jeep Grand Cherokee Lurdo was parked in front of our house. As I pulled into our entrance, my phone rang. Hi, honey, I said when I saw my wife's name on the phone screen. Hey, Nick, when will you be home? We need to talk, she said. Her voice sounded strange. What do you mean, dear? Who is we? I had a suspicion that we included someone who drove that Jeep. Just come as soon as possible, okay? Okay, honey. I love you, I said. Okay, bye. Now alarm bells started ringing in my head. I made sure my pocket recorder was in my pocket and ready to use, and my cell phone was set to camera function, just in case. I didn't understand what was happening to Sammy. She has never forgotten to tell me she loves me before, even recently. And now this, I took deep breaths, doing breathing exercises to calm myself. Once I was calm, I got out of the car and took a photo of the Jeep's license plate. I had a really bad feeling. My instincts were always correct. As soon as I entered the house, I saw them kissing. They didn't even suspect that I was so close, and I managed to take several pictures of them together with their lips connected. I walked in, calm, continuing to take photos until they noticed me. I turned on the recording on the pocket recorder I had in my pocket. Oh my God, Sammy exclaimed. You scared me, Nick. Could you please explain why you're kissing some asshole at my soon-to-be ex-wife house? I asked, raising an eyebrow as I turned off my phone. That's part of what I wanted to talk to you about, she said. I looked at the asshole for the first time, and suddenly I had the urge to grab a weapon and shoot him in the head so that I could drive a truck through it. Dennis Linder, my current target, stood in my living room and dominated the heights above me. Okay, this was a confusing situation. The client's husband, an asshole, was now standing in my house, seemingly sleeping with my wife. At that moment, more than anything else, I wanted to shoot them both. My heart was breaking, but anger pushed the pain into the background. However, if I wanted to get my money, I needed to control myself. Revenge will come later. Revenge is a bitch, and these two will feel it firsthand. Okay, what do you want to discuss? I asked, maintaining a calmness that I didn't really feel. Mr. Carter, may I call you Nick? Asked the asshole. No, Nick is for friends. You are not my friend. You are an asshole who has my wife. Therefore, we will never be friends. Understood? I asked mockingly. Yes. Well, I'm Dr. Dennis Linder, and I'm treating your wife with sex therapy. He introduced himself. Okay, does sex therapy involve kissing my wife in my house? I asked, raising my eyebrow again. Actually, it is now. I know it's out of the ordinary, and it's probably hard to accept. But you'll have to watch us while we do it, he said. God, this guy was dumber than a box of bowling balls. He played into my hands, strengthening not only my grounds for divorce, but also convincing me that his wife would get everything. Except my claims for destruction of family ties and professional incompetence, which I was already planning. I just looked at him for a minute. Dr. Dennis Linder, huh? I hear you're pretty good at what you do. Psychology, right? I asked, cozying up to him. Yes, psychology. My methods are sometimes controversial, but I always achieve results, he replied, proud of himself. And how long has my wife been coming to you for? Therapy, I asked, holding back my explosion of emotions that was rushing out. 2 months, he confirmed. Sammy didn't tell me anything about seeing a psychiatrist. I looked at her. Sammy, if it was that bad, why didn't you just talk to me? I told you years ago when we were dating that if something was wrong, you could always come to me. Do you remember that? I asked, trying to reach her. I think, she answered hesitantly. Confusion flashed across her face. Sammy, remember what we talked about, Dr. Prajilsaful intervened. Control. You need to assert your control. I know you don't like feeling powerless, so you need to take the initiative. Remember? His voice sounded strange, almost hypnotic, as he spoke to her, and I saw her expression harden again. You're right, Dennis. I need to show him that I'm not just some stupid woman to be pushed around. Then she looked at me angrily. Sammy, what are you talking about? I almost screamed. When have I ever pushed you to do anything? Me? In bed. We always make love the way you want, never the way I want. She almost screamed at me. Okay, Sammy. You know what we said after the wedding. If we want to try something new, we'll just talk about it and see what happens. Remember? I asked. All you had to do was ask, and we could at least talk about it. Again, her expression became confused. But before Dr. K. Vasol could say anything, her face hardened again. Nick, I need to do this. I need to see what other men are out there. You can watch or not, but I will do it, she said firmly. Sammy, please don't do this. Please. I really wanted to say give me more evidence. Please. But I refrained. I would have gotten a lot more evidence. I need this, Nick. It won't affect us. I still love you, she said with a hint of a smile. Then I knew that she was lying to me. I just need something different, and just this one time. Oh? Well, for the record, I don't want you to do this, and there will be consequences if you do it anyway, I said, shaking my head in what I hoped looked like resignation. I would reluctantly agree. Mr. Princess Carter, please let me do my job. Do you have a chair in your bedroom? He asked. He wanted to have sex with my wife on our marital bed. Note to self, burn the bed and buy a new one. Yes, there is. Wait, do you really want me there? I asked with horror on my face. It is necessary, yes, said Dr. Fool. If you insist. I snorted. Doctor, is there any other way to get my wife back to normal? I'm afraid not, he said with a false sincerity that would not deceive even a child in kindergarten. Well, I hope you don't expect me to engage in adultery, I said bluntly. Mr. Cricken Carter, what your wife and I are about to do is hardly adultery. I'm just helping her overcome a psychological barrier and become more confident in her relationship with you. You'll both be stronger after we're done, he said. Me with a smile, which again required a huge effort of will so that I would not put the gun in his mouth and shoot. I don't agree with this, just so you know. I will never agree to the act of adultery that you and my wife are committing, and it is adultery, no matter what you call it, I said, noticing that there was no wedding ring on his finger and there was not even a trace of tan on his finger. Like I said, Mr. Carter, it's therapy, controversial therapy, sure, but it's not adultery. His smile was condescending this time. Oh, this was going to be a lot of fun after a little pain. Well, not pain. My love for Sammy had died and I felt numb and a desperate need for justice for what I was going to do to that asshole after he was done having my soon-to-be ex-wife. I still don't agree with that, I said, shaking my head even as I followed them into the master bedroom. I secretly took out my iPhone and started recording video while he undressed Sammy and made her lie on the bed. She willingly spread her legs for him as he undressed as well, neither of them looking my way as I sat down on a chair to take off a lot of the material. Last chance you two, I said. Don't do this. This is being done without my consent. The doctor looked at me, noticing my iPhone sticking out of my jacket pocket, but he didn't realize that he was recording a video. He snorted derisively, like you have a choice. Then he started having sex with Sammy and that was all I needed to see. That was all I needed to write down. Janine's case was now impeccable and this could be the end of it. I got up from my chair and calmly walked over to where Dr. Halfwit was working hard on Samantha. I grabbed him by the hair and yanked him back sharply. Then I hit him on the bundle of nerves between his neck and shoulder and he folded up like a bad poker hand. He was still conscious but could not move. Doctor, did my ex-wife ever tell you what I do? I could see the confusion on his face. Sammy was now angry at me, like I had grown a third eye. I am a private detective, doctor. I now have proof that you tried to cuckold me with my wife. I now have everything I need to get a divorce due to infidelity. I have video and audio. I also now have evidence of broken family ties and professional incompetence. I grinned in triumph, then pulled my pistol from my belt. See, doctor, you're a big man. Maybe I'd lose to you in a fair fight, but Colonel Sam Colt makes all men equal in the eyes of God. You should be able to move in a moment. As soon as you can, get dressed, take your bitch and get out of here. I said calmly and evenly, which scared both of them to death. I heard Sammy sob. Fine. I looked at the woman who had just broken my heart. Samantha, get dressed, pack your things and leave. What? She was indignant. You heard me. I told you there would be consequences if you continued this, and those consequences would be pretty bad. I said distantly. I felt like my emotions weren't functioning the way they should. These consequences start now. You need to pack up your things, put them in your car or his SUV and leave. I'll call my lawyer and have him draw up the divorce papers. Then I'll get a restraining order against you and the doctor here. I'm just glad that we don't have children. And I'm very glad that I will never be the father of your children. I shook my head. Sammy, you broke my heart. I hope you deserve it. My voice cracked during that last sentence. I can't believe I never really knew you, Samantha. I called her by her full name because I knew she hated it, and because she knew that I only called her that when I was angry. Samantha, remember our conversation not long before our wedding? The one where you talked about fidelity? Remember that conversation? The one where you said you wouldn't tolerate cheating? The one where you said you have zero tolerance for cheaters? Well, darling, this qualifies. I saw the wisdom in your words that day and accepted your philosophy. The asshole came to his senses before she could respond and seemed to be seriously considering throwing himself at me. I walked away from him, still keeping Sam Colt aimed at him. I also made sure I kept Samantha in sight. You're making a mistake, Mr. Gitz Carter. I'll sue, he snorted. No mistake. I caught you in bed with my wife and thought she was taken by force. Who will the cops believe? The respected private investigator who caught the rapist? Or the man who claims it was all consensual? Look at Samantha, doctor. Look at the agony on her face. The agony that she was hurt. It's good that I came when I did, isn't it? Now, maybe I should call the police and report it. His face paled as he hesitated and then decided not to take any chances. Okay, no harm, no foul, he tried to joke, but the joke fell flat. No charges. I noticed that he still hadn't mentioned his wife. It was interesting. He probably thought he was keeping a secret from me, and I would let him have that illusion for now, but I needed to push him a little. I'm sure the news stations will love this story. Private investigator caught wife in bed with her psychologist. News at 11, I shook my head with disgust on my face. That's when he turned pale. No, you can't make this public, he almost shouted. He dressed quickly, making sure he took everything he came with. Please, don't make this public. Now he was begging, I pressed him. If you pay back all the fees my soon-to-be ex-wife paid you, I might consider it. But I will still file a claim for destruction of family ties and professional incompetence, I said, backing him into a corner. Done, whatever, he said with a scared look in his eyes. Everything I want, there are many possibilities. But no, I wanted him to feel fear. I wanted him to experience the fear of inevitable despair, the complete destruction that awaited him. I liked to enjoy it, and I didn't feel guilty about deceiving him like he had deceived me. The difference is that while he had my wife, I was going to ruin his life. As soon as he got dressed, he ran out of my bedroom, and I heard the front door slam as he broke all speed records running away from me in my house. I looked at Samantha, and I could tell she saw the anger in my eyes. Nick, we can get through this, she pleaded, shedding crocodile tears. Please, darling. Where was honey when I got home, Samantha? Where was the love then? I asked sarcastically. Get dressed, pack your things, and leave, I said. You have an hour. Since Dr. Gojadful wants nothing more to do with you, I suggest you go to your parents. Samantha looked at me in complete shock. She then began to dress and pack her things without enthusiasm. I let her use all 4 of our suitcases, knowing that I would just buy new ones. I walked her to the car, in the kindness of my soul, helping her carry her suitcases to the trunk of her car. In other words, I dumped them in the driveway next to the trunk of her car. Then I went back into the house and slammed the door behind me. I called Wes and asked him to apply for a restraining order through the night judge. I named both Samantha and Dr. Dennis Linder in the complaint. Then I asked him to start filing papers for divorce, a claim for destruction of family ties and professional incompetence. An hour later, both the locksmith and the guys from the furniture store finished their work. And I paid for their services with a credit card. I called the credit card company and canceled Samantha's credit cards. I then called my bank manager at home and asked him to cancel Samantha's debit card. I did not explain the reasons, but as the main owner of our accounts, I considered it necessary. I didn't trust her anymore. For those who think I've gone too far, go fuck yourself. I poured myself a couple of glasses of Chivas. I usually prefer beer and love it more than any other drink. However, I needed something stronger. So I poured myself a glass and sipped it, thinking about the disaster that my marriage had become in such a short time. Somewhere around 7 in the evening, I felt like I was going to lose control. I called Danny. Hello, Chief, Danny answered. Hey, Danny, I didn't want to call you after work, but I need your help tonight, I said, proud that a couple of glasses of Chivas didn't affect my judgment or speech. What happened, Chief? She asked. I could never deceive her. It's complicated and I don't want to talk about it on the phone. Just come to my house, I said, feeling the walls begin to crumble in my mind. Okay, Chief, I'll be there. She hung up before I could answer. Bless this girl. 10 minutes later, she knocked on my door. I got up from where I was sitting, looking at the empty TV and went to open it. As soon as I opened the door, Danny rushed into my arms and hugged me tightly. She slammed the door behind her with her foot and then pulled away from our embrace to lock it for dead. When she turned back, she grabbed my hand and pulled me back onto the couch. She sat down next to me. Okay, where's Sammy? She asked, already guessing what was happening. After all, Sammy's car wasn't in the driveway and I wasn't as upset as I would have been if she had died. I looked into Danny's deep brown eyes. She left, probably to her parents. She cheated on me, Danny. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore as she hugged me and held me while I ruined her blouse with my tears. I clung to her desperately, needing human contact. When I finally cried, Danny carefully pulled away and looked into my eyes. Nick, listen to me. Are you absolutely sure Sammy cheated on you? Not trusting my voice, instead of answering, I took out my pocket recorder and turned it on play, placing it on the coffee table. Then I opened my mobile phone, turned on the video, and handed it to her. Danny watched and listened, and more horror appeared in her eyes while I went to grab 2 beers from the refrigerator. When I returned, there was a dark fire in her eyes, and she stopped the recording and video. I opened both bottles of arrogant bastard ale and handed one to her. Esa maldita para palas, Danny suddenly exploded after taking a sip of bitter ale. That damn bitch, wow, Danny didn't mince words. I smiled ironically at her words. Danny is loyal to the core, and she is loyal to me. She took another long sip, then took several deep breaths. Nick, what are your plans? She asked, placing her hand on mine. Because whatever you have in mind, I want to be in it. Nuke the doctor. I have reason to suspect that Sammy may have been under the influence of hypnosis. If so, I want her to get help, I said, my voice hoarse from crying. If there was even the slightest possibility that the asshole had somehow zombified or coerced her, I'd like to know how. But as for Dr. Dzafel himself, I want him and everyone around him to burn, except for his wife, who you met earlier in the office. Turns out she was right about him cheating, and it was with my own wife. This is some kind of twisted nonsense, Nick. Danny shook her head in sympathy. But okay, what's our first step? Reconnaissance, of course. I managed to smile, controlling my feelings for the moment. Now that I was for the cause, it was easy for me to go back to a professional mask. I'm going to visit his office in a few hours. If you don't like breaking and entering, you don't have to go. The hell with it. I said I'm with you, Chief. I'm in this until the end, and you know I won't back down. She smiled at me, then leaned over and hugged me tightly. I know Sammy, Nick. I've known her almost as long as I've known you. I think she was at least under pressure from that cabron. I think so too, but even so, I'm not sure I want her back. She ruined everything. She only knew this idiot for 2 months, and during that time he managed to convince her that our marriage was just another toilet where you can go for a lot. I said this while still hugging her tightly. God, she felt so good. I gently pulled her away and looked into her eyes. There was something there that I hadn't seen in Samantha's eyes for a long time. Lust. Pure naked lust, and I was sorely tempted to kiss her right then. 2 things stopped me. 1, I was hoping that Sammy was a victim of hypnosis or coercion, and that somehow we could get past this. 2, even if she turned out to be more inclined than she seemed, I was not going to stoop to her level and cheat with anyone, not even with Danny. Danny, I know what you're thinking, and you have no idea how tempting it is right now. But we have work to do. I struggled to squeeze out the words through my iron will. I strengthened my resolve and continued. We'll stop by the office to pick up the van. Okay, boss, she said, holding back her feelings. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that she'd always had a little crush on me. We flirted back and forth, but I thought she was content with just flirting. But now that Sammy was out of the picture, at least for now, it was obvious that she wanted more. Part of me was dying to give her what she wanted, and that part of me wanted it just as much as she did. But, and here's the main thing, I was not going to do what my wife did. No, my revenge will be much worse if everything goes the way I fear. Plus, I didn't want to hurt Danny, and I knew that if Sammy did get influenced or hypnotized by Dr. Fool, Danny would suffer greatly if or when I decided to deal with Sammy. We left in her car and picked up the van from the office. I took the Comcast logo magnets out of the back and attached them to the sides of the van. Urban camouflage clothing. Gotta love it. We pulled up to Dr. Tutor Dennis Linder's offices around 11 p.m., and I entered the office building, picking the lock. I wore soft calfskin gloves that prevented fingerprints but allowed enough freedom of movement that my dexterity didn't suffer. Picking the lock was child's play, and once I was inside, I made sure my earpiece was working properly so I could communicate with Danny. I hear you perfectly, Chief, she said. I had a small 50 gigabytes USB drive with me. I was going to examine his computer as well as his file cabinet. I wanted to take a good look at his business. If he did this to my wife, I wondered how many other wives he treated this way. The security system was child's play as I called security, introduced myself as Dr. Deslinder, and said I had forgotten my password. It's amazing that the power of a good bluffing game can achieve so much. I sounded authoritative, a little arrogant, and they believed me without further questions. Amateurs, Danny laughed through my earpiece. Exactly, I laughed quietly as I picked the lock of the doctor's office. I went straight to his computer and woke it up. There were no family photographs on the table. Gee, he didn't really like his wife. I shook my head at the fact that this asshole who had a damn attractive wife at home was cheating on at least one of his patients. The computer was password protected. Crap. 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 Okay, don't panic. I went over in my head what I knew about Dr. Linder. He was smart, although not very streetwise. He was cunning when it came to seducing women. On the way here, Danny told me other details that she found out about Dr. Cheertrash after I left. He was a serial sexist, if you read between the lines of other patients who sued him for medical incompetence or even accused him of sexual assault. These charges were then withdrawn without compelling reasons, just some cliché misunderstanding when the police asked about it. I already hated this guy. Now I was ready to kill him slowly and with great pleasure, enjoying watching him suffer extreme physical and emotional pain. So, given his penchant for women, I tried Romeo as the password. Access is denied. Casanova. Access is denied. Lothario. Access is allowed. What a predictable asshole. Finding the required files was easy. Wow, that son of a bitch was smug. I inserted the flash drive and downloaded its entire special patients section, which almost filled the entire 50 gigabytes. I noted some names including Samantha Carter. This damn bastard. He had video files of Sammy. Okay, as you wish. I removed the flash drive and put his computer to sleep. Then I started rustling through his file cabinet. I found Sammy's file, but there was nothing in it that indicated what they were doing. So he wasn't a complete idiot to record his sexual conquests in paper files. Is there anything, Chief? Danny asked through the earpiece. Many things, dear, I replied. Nothing on paper, but I have about 45 gigabytes of videos that he recorded with quite a few of his patients. Damn. Okay, we'll have to watch this when we get home, she said. I got a strange feeling from the way she used the words we in-house in the context of our immediate plans. When I left the office, I made sure that all the doors were locked and there was no trace of my presence. There was not a single CCTV camera, just a phone call I made from an untraceable number on a burnable phone. Voice identification could be a problem if someone was interested enough, but I wasn't going to worry about that right now. It was already after midnight when we returned to my house. We walked inside after I closed the garage door, and before I could say anything, Danny caught up with me. I'll stay the night with you, Nick, she stated firmly, leaving no room for argument. Okay, I shrugged. You can stay in the guest room. No, Nick, I'll stay in your room in your new bed, and I won't take no for an answer. You shouldn't be alone tonight, even if we don't have sex. And so she laid all the cards on the table, revealing the invisible elephant in the room. Danny, I trust you. Hell, you're practically the only woman on earth I trust right now. I'm asking you, please don't make me break my marriage vows tonight. Okay, I asked. I promise, she said with a smile, then kissed me on the cheek. We'll review the footage in the morning. I brought my laptop so we can split the videos and watch them in half the time. Sounds like a plan, honey, I said, heading to the bathroom to take a shower. I felt dirty, and it wasn't just because I hadn't showered from morning to evening. While I was standing in the shower, my mental wall opened, and all the feelings of betrayal rushed back. I was sobbing, resting my forehead against the shower wall, when I heard the shower door slide open. The next thing I felt was a wet and naked woman hugging me. Danny held me tightly, rubbing my back as she washed me. She dried us both off, then led me into the bedroom. She didn't even bother putting on pajamas or a nightgown. She put me in bed, covered me with a sheet, and then walked around the bed and climbed in on the other side. I fell asleep limply soon after I closed my eyes. I was completely exhausted both physically and emotionally. The next morning, I woke up with a smile on my face. Sammy snuggled up to me. Her hand was on my waist. Her hand touched me below the waist. I moved her hand a little forward, and she began to caress me. I groaned loudly, remembering the terrible nightmare of last night. "You're horny for me, Pappy," her seductive whisper sounded in my ear. "Crap," I exclaimed, and then jumped out of bed as if it were on fire. It was real. This wasn't just a bad dream. Sammy actually cheated on me and left me. Danny stood up and hugged me tightly. God, she really went all out with me. I decided to nip this in the bud. "Danny, listen to me, okay?" I said in a hoarse voice. She nodded reluctantly, and I continued. "Danny, I'm sorry about what just happened. I thought yesterday was just a really bad dream. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about you like that sometimes. But I love my wife, or who she was before that bastard got her. But I promise you one thing right now. If Sammy went through with it willingly, I will divorce her when it's done. If you still want me, I'm more than willing. Try with you, okay? And that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with you," she sighed with a mixture of admiration and irritation in her voice. "You are the most honest person I have ever met." "Thank you, honey." I kissed her cheek as I released her young body. I finally had the opportunity to look at it without tears in my eyes, and it literally left me speechless. God, I was tempted like never before. "Like what you see, Pappy?" She looked at me with a seductive smile. Aha! I managed to get out with difficulty. My brain was deprived of oxygen. My size has become huge compared to normal. Danny looked down, smiled, but did not extend her hand to me. "When this is over, and if you don't get back with Sammy, I'll have you for the rest of our lives, Pappy," she whispered. "Danny, if I'm not with Sammy when this blows over, I'll let you," I whispered back. Then stepped back and ran into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. After that I was able to urinate with relief. When I went out to get dressed, Danny was no longer in the room, but I heard the hiss of a frying pan in the kitchen. I smiled at this, then put on jeans and a t-shirt, fastened my belt with a holster and Colt, and went out to her. I don't usually carry a gun around the house, but I wasn't going to take any chances with a possible sociopathic psychologist on the loose. I noticed that Danny was also armed. She had a Lady Smith & Wesson 9mm. She also received her concealed carry permit shortly after I hired her. "Smells delicious," I said with my first big, sincere smile since all this trouble began. "Thanks, Nick," she gave me a sweet smile, and then went back to flipping the omelette she was making. I smelled bacon, cheese, and salsa. She really knew a lot about food. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts and the jeans she wore last night. Her blouse was still on the floor in bedroom. "Danny, I know this will be hard for both of us," I said, sitting down on a stool at the kitchen counter. She looked at me and raised an eyebrow. "Boss, I didn't consent to being pampered. You made it clear from day one that I would likely be needed in some cases, and with my background in criminal justice, you knew you could count on me. I couldn't help but fall in love with you, but that doesn't mean I'll shy away from this matter. This matter is also personal to me because Sammy is my friend. By the time we're done with his ass, this Pindijo doctor is going to have a terrible awakening." Every word she said was true. She worked as a detective for the Los Angeles Police Department for 2 years, but was kicked out for beating an assault suspect to a pulp. She was lucky enough to avoid serious charges, but since the son of a bitch was guilty, they didn't want the bad publicity that came with charging her. She was given a small severance package to keep her quiet about the circumstances of her dismissal, but she told me directly about it when I first interviewed her. That was one of the reasons I gave her the job. I needed someone who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Danny was definitely not afraid to get her hands dirty. Sometimes I just forget about her. "You are right." I nodded. "Danny, I need to tell you something about me that even Sammy doesn't know." I took a deep breath. I knew I could trust Danny. She confided in me and I confirmed the truth of who she was and why she was fired. What do you mean? She asked with a confused look on her face. Danny, I've never worked for an insurance company. I worked as a secret agent for this company. There. My name is Nick Carter and I was a spy. And that sounds like a very bad experience. Opening burn notification. Danny just looked at me, then put our omelets on plates and brought them to the counter along with our mugs of coffee. God bless Danny. That's pretty much what I understood. Either that or you had a criminal record somewhere. She shrugged. You always look around as if someone is watching you. You don't really show it, but I've noticed it over the years we've been together. You know a lot about bugs and how to use them. You know a lot about bugs and how to quickly connect your phone. And your lock-picking skills are on par with the best nightmare thieves. I laughed out loud. She truly was a great detective. Well done, I said, raising my coffee mug in her honor before taking a sip. Just right. And you make the best coffee in the world. Just so you know, I added. A smile appeared on her face. Thank you, boss, she said. I'm not just a pretty face and a hot body, you know. She winked at me. I know. If that was all you were, I wouldn't hire you. I shrugged. She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. Thank you, Nick. No matter how things turn out. Thank you for everything. She smiled. Hey, you sound like you're going to leave. This won't happen. I chuckled. You will work with me until we are both old and gray. She thought for a moment. You know, you're right. She smiled. I couldn't leave even if they paid me $1 million a day. Okay, I said. Because I can't afford it and you're the best assistant I could ever ask for. I'm glad you finally admit it, boss. Now eat before I hit you. She stuck her tongue out at me and I responded in kind. Then I got serious about eating and Danny's omelet was incredibly delicious. God, this girl has golden hands. Of course, Sammy was a tornado in bed, was my tornado in bed, and she cooked quite well. But, and you knew there was a but, Danny's skills in the kitchen easily outshone Sammy. If she was half as good at sex as she is at cooking, I would seriously consider trading one for the other, even if Sammy was brainwashed by Dr. Penis Mushroom. It might seem cruel, but she gave in too easily without consulting me at all. I couldn't believe she went to see a quack psychiatrist and didn't discuss anything with me. It wasn't like her. She used to tell me everything at the initial stage of our relationship. It's only been in the last couple of months since her therapy that she has cut me off almost completely. As soon as breakfast was finished, I helped Danny wash the dishes. As soon as we finished, she suddenly put her arms around my neck and pulled my face towards hers. She kissed me passionately and for a few seconds I responded with an equally passionate kiss. Our tongues fought for dominance and then I retreated, blushing like a schoolboy. Sorry, Nick, she said quietly. No, Danny. I don't think either of us regrets it, I laughed. Damn, I wish I had met you before my wife. And I'm sorry, she said sadly. Crap. Someone is bound to get hurt no matter how things turn out. I really didn't want any of them to get hurt if Sammy was swayed or brainwashed. We had to watch these videos. Let's go watch these videos and see if they can clear up Sammy's mental state, I said. We went into my office where I keep my home office and I downloaded half the video onto her laptop. I started where I needed to start, with Sammy. The first interview was quite simple, just a getting to know you session. Dr. Fleabag was writing in his notebook, asking Sammy questions about her life. He asked about her husband and other family members. She told him about her parents and how much she loved us all. I studied his face and a sly smile played on his lips. He then asked a few more innocuous questions and then told her not to tell anyone about it as it could negatively impact their future therapy sessions. This scoundrel. He planned to seduce her from the very beginning. And since she followed his instructions, keeping me in the dark, there was nothing I could have done to stop it. He abused her trust in him as a medical professional, specialist, negligence claim. Check. The second video had more questions. This time there are more personal questions. He asked her about our sex life. She answered truthfully, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride when she admitted that I gave her multiple pleasures every time we had sex. He simply wrote down every answer she gave in his infernal notebook. He asked a few more personal questions that she didn't seem to want to answer, but he assured her that no one else would ever know what she said. She answered truthfully again. It all ended with him confirming the need to maintain the confidentiality of this meeting. She agreed. I checked the dates on the video. There were 16 videos of Sammy's sessions, corresponding to his meetings on Monday and Wednesday. I groaned, covering my face with my hands. The third video was difficult to watch. But again, he didn't brainwash her or coerce her in any way other than professional ethics, as he called it. She told him about her fantasies, many of which I already knew about and helped her realize. However, there were some things she had never told me before. Did she want to tie me up? Did she want to dominate me in the bedroom? Jesus, she never told me anything about this. Again, after she had finished telling him what he wanted to know, he stressed the need for secrecy and sent her on her way. The fourth video was when he began his insidious seduction in full force. He asked her to describe in detail her fantasies about domination, and she began to describe what she wanted to do to me, and I listened carefully to her every word. She made it through 2 of them before time ran out. Another secrecy agreement, and she was on her way. The 5th and 6th videos were very similar to the 4th. He reminded her to keep each one confidential, and she agreed. The 7th and 8th videos were about another one of her fantasies. I was beginning to understand why she didn't tell me about these fantasies. I just shook my head as she told him personal things about herself that she never shared with me, her own husband. He then asked her to have sex with 2 men at the same time and showed her a video clip. When she saw this, the gears started turning in her brain, and she said she would think about it. It was his triumphant achievement, and I saw his sly smile at the end of the video. He reminded her again to keep their sessions secret, and then let her go. The rest of the videos were mostly him talking to her about her fantasies so far. He listed each fantasy and pointed out how she was actually a dominant person who had been a submissive all her life and accepted it. At first she was subordinate to her family. Then she was subordinate to me. He raised her self-esteem to the point of selfishness by the end of the 14th video and convinced her to have sex with 2 men, including me as part of her therapy. I noticed that from that moment on, he did not encourage her to remain silent, knowing that she would not tell anyone, including me. In the 15th video, he slept with her for the first time. This was a little less than a week and a half ago. He told her that he would be the second man if she wanted it. The 16th video was the last one. She walked in and, without letting him say a word, kissed him passionately and then had rough sex, and after they finished, she said that she didn't just want a 2-on-1, she wanted to cuckold me with him. This was the decisive moment. This showed that she had crossed the line. She deliberately decided to cuckold me instead of her original plan to have sex with me and him. This time she told him to keep it a secret, and she will call him with the correct day and time. I paused the video and looked up to see Danny looking at me with tears in her eyes and a disgusted look on her face that probably reflected my own disgust. The guy was a serial seducer. A real Lothario. It made sense with his computer password at least. I will drop such a legal bomb on this son of a bitch that he will regret he was ever born, I quietly promised to God and Danny. I'm with you, boss, she said, sitting on the edge of my desk. Longer videos seem to be more challenging. If it makes you feel better, everyone else is shorter than Sammy's. She lasted the longest, it seemed. She shrugged and gave me a reassuring smile. I guess this, since all the remaining videos are shorter than hers. But you just confirmed it. This guy makes Machiavelli look like a good guy, I shook my head. But as far as coercion or brainwashing is concerned, he is not guilty of that. He just convinces them to do it, and there's no harm in it. Yes, I noticed that too. As far as I understood, he never involved his husband in their little games. But then the husband somehow found out and filed for divorce. All the cases I have checked so far have ended in divorce. She listed the names of the women and their ex-husbands. Fine, contact several ex-husbands and find out how they found out that Dr. Badass had seduced their wives. I need to talk to Janine. I shoot her out of the room, then took out my cell phone and called Janine. Hello? Janine, this is Nick, I said in a controlled voice. Oh Nick, thank you for calling. Are you going to start your investigation today? She asked. Actually, I have already completed it. You were more right than you think. Can you come to my house tonight or tomorrow morning? We need to discuss some things, both personal and professional. Do not get me wrong. I'm not proposing to you, but this matter is too close to my heart, I explained. Can you clarify what we're talking about, Nick? She asked. Not on the phone, ma'am. Better tonight or tomorrow morning. My assistant Danny will also be here as she has information she wants to share with you, I told her. What is your address? I gave her my address and she said she would be here in 10 minutes. 11 minutes later I heard a car in the driveway. I checked and saw that she arrived in a beautiful Jaguar XJ6. I opened the door for her and Danny brought her coffee while I went to get mine and Danny's laptops. I set both up on the coffee table and Danny and I sat on either side of Janine as I started explaining things. Janine, Dennis is a serial cheater who uses his professional position and trust to seduce women and conjure their husbands behind their backs, I said. As far as we have seen, he only attacks married women. There is not a single person here, Danny added. Now every video series describes seduction. He gains their trust, then talks about fantasies or problems in their marriages. He uses this information to seduce them into doing exactly what he wants. He doesn't coerce or manipulate his victims, but he is a serial offender as you can see, I continued, showing her a series of videos. She sobbed when she saw how many there were. How the hell could he hide all this? She exclaimed, her face turning red with anger. Janine, please calm down. There's more, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. More? She looked at me as if I had just fallen from another planet. Yes, ma'am. As I said on the phone, this case is too close to me. You see, my wife was his last conquest. I showed her the name Samantha Carter on the video series I highlighted. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Nick. Janine hugged me tightly. He will pay for this, be sure of this. He will pay through the bloody ass that I will give him for all this rubbish. Janine, how much is your husband worth in money? I will file a claim for alienation of feelings and medical malpractice against him, I said. Don't worry, I will introduce you to the best divorce lawyer in California. Wes will take care of you and get you the best he can. Janine laughed. Oh honey, Dennis is worth over $250 million, including his properties around the world. He has a lucrative practice, his books are bestsellers, and he has been a guest on Dr. Phil several times. He made most of his money from his books though. Fine, I suggest striking with lightning speed. We will hit hard and fast, but it will probably take a few days to prepare. Do you trust us? I asked, pointing at myself and Danny. Yes, she said. You've lost a lot too, Nick. I'm sorry for that. I should have realized what a snake he is before this. I understand. Come to my office tomorrow morning and I'll introduce you to Wes. He is my lawyer and will be handling my divorce from Samantha, as well as my lawsuits against your husband. But by Friday we hope to have some of the other ex-husbands on board to file claims against him for medical malpractice and alienation of feelings. I laid out my plan and she nodded and smiled when I finished. I can agree with that. The problem will be to act normally around him for 2 more days. I can refer to women's problems or simply go to the city to visit my mother. She's old, so he'll probably believe it, Janine nodded. True, he is trained to notice changes in mood or behavior. My advice is to contact your mother, tell her what's going on and ask her to cover for you. In the meantime, I have a guest room with a double bed and room for 2 more cars in my garage, I smiled. So far there was only my car and Danny's car. I handed her the garage door remote and she accepted it gratefully. She went home to pack her things. Danny also went home to pack her things. She packed for about a week and returned half an hour later. I laughed as she dragged her things into my room and put them in Sammy's old dresser. The girl was determined, I must admit that. The next morning, Janine returned just as I was getting out of bed after another wonderful night with Danny by my side. She was now wearing my XL t-shirt and panties to sleep, which I was grateful for. I was wearing boxers and pajama pants and a t-shirt. Danny was in the shower when I heard the garage door open. Janine looked great and gave me a sympathetic hug and a kiss on the cheek as I went out to meet her as soon as she entered the house. She had a small suitcase with several sets of clothes. She also brought me Danny's bank statements and I gasped when I saw how much liquid assets he had. After Danny had prepared breakfast for us all and we had eaten another great meal, Janine told us that she was ready to move on. I informed her that we could move forward once all the ex-husbands and wives were informed of the latest news. We had 11 ex-husbands to call and then they had to call their ex-wives and tell them what was going on. We were planning to file separate lawsuits against Dr. Sadzvaka for medical malpractice and alienation of feelings and they were more than welcome to join us. Unsurprisingly, most husbands were more than willing to take revenge and even most ex-wives were determined to join us. I didn't mean to get Sammy involved though, not after watching the last video. I showed up at Wes's office along with 9 of the 11 ex-husbands we were able to contact and all 9 ex-wives. Since I was ex-husband #12, I was in on it too. Wes, to save time, drafted identical claims for sensory impairment and medical malpractice, simply inserting different names depending on who was in line. He was like a kid in a candy store, dealing with more than $175 million in assets from Dr. T's halfwit and nearly $100 million in real estate around the world that would likely have to be liquidated to pay for legal fees, divorces, and intrusion claims. Of course, a class action would have been easier for everyone, but we were going for a shock effect. I wanted Dr. Denny's, Mina's lender, to know that his world was about to crumble like the walls of Jericho. Janine waited with Danny and me at the end of the line while Wes happily helped his new crowd of clients make the scoundrel's life miserable and get rich in the process. Yes, he is a good friend of mine, but he is still a lawyer. When he finally finished typing up the medical malpractice and sensory impairment papers for his new clients and sent them off happily with the promise that he would deliver them to Dr. Byfool at work, bright and early on Monday morning with plenty of witnesses, it was Janine's turn and mine. I filed for divorce from Samantha and Janine filed for divorce from her soon-to-be ex-husband. Wes was fascinated by Janine immediately, and the reciprocity was obvious. I set up Wes to have each set of documents delivered to a different bailiff at the same time. Wes, Janine, and Danny joined me in grinning like a skeleton. It was going to be packed as soon as Monday morning arrived, and Danny and I, along with Janine, had seats in the front row. As a bonus, Wes included a restraining order against Dr. Byfool at no cost to each of us, his clients. He knew how rich he would be after this whole massive nuclear attack died down. Then it was time for Phase Roman II. Phase Roman II involved media and law enforcement saturation. I used Sammy's video, blurring out her face and changing her voice to a computer voice, hiding all references to her name or mine using a new media editing program. I have edited together excerpts from various videos showing how Dr. Dennis Linder used to seduce women, luring them away from happy marriages or marriages that could become happy again after his therapy, but he saw the need to destroy these marriages for the sake of his twisted ego. I used clips from videos of other women too, showing how they were all manipulated into turning against their husbands at Linder's instigation. I knew the news media would eat it up. The FBI will also be looking into criminal medical malpractice because he defrauded men and had sex with their wives. The California Psychological Association will also be interested in the case. I created an anonymous email address for this and used proxy servers so that I could not be traced. Phase Roman II began Monday morning, immediately after the bailiffs had done their work. As soon as the last bailiff left, I handed Janine the basket of popcorn and she began to eat the popcorn as Denny rushed out of his office, looking around. He saw me standing next to his soon-to-be ex-wife and Danny. I picked up my cell phone, hit the send button on the mass email, and began Phase Roman II. We got into my car and drove away as Dr. Deeser deprived shouted after us that he would kill us all. The last thing I saw that day was him on his knees in the parking lot, holding a pile of papers, crying. My revenge is not half over yet. Phase Roman 3 included a meeting with Samantha, which she agreed to. She was staying with her parents and was prepared to learn that she might have to leave if she was unlucky. We met in a very public place. Starbucks. I love this place. I'm here. Does that mean you want to talk? She asked hopefully, sitting down opposite me. Actually, I need to tell you something. I began with a smile. Samantha, I could forgive you almost anything if you were forced or brainwashed by that scoundrel. I am not kidding. But after watching 16 hours of you agreeing with everything he said, even over your objections, you finally offered to cuckold me to fulfill your dominance fantasy. This is something I cannot forgive or forget. I slowly shook my head. Sammy, I was ready to do almost anything for you. I loved you more than you can imagine. Loved, in the past tense. I would have given my life for you until I saw this betrayal. This is the ultimate betrayal of everything we meant to each other. I'm sorry, Samantha. But you received a summons. I pushed the divorce papers towards her. I think you'll find the terms fair given the circumstances. She looked at the documents in shock. Are you kidding? I wasn't in my right mind, honey. Please, you have to believe me. She panicked, and then I put the other shoe down. If I were you, I'd figure out what to tell my parents, Samantha. Something tells me they just received an anonymous letter showing what kind of daughter they raised. I stood up and walked out, leaving her in stunned silence. Wes asked Janine out on a date, and she accepted. I vouched for his integrity as much as possible. When she asked about it, I said, he's a divorce lawyer. I shrugged. Then I'll just have to keep an eye on him. She smiled. But seriously, he's a good guy. I wouldn't work with him if that wasn't the case, I said, relenting. The next day, Wes called me and told me that Sammy and her lawyer were at his place and wanted to talk. I agreed and went there with Danny as moral support. Okay, I'm here, I said, sitting down across from Sammy and her lawyer, who looked a little like Gloria Allred, while Danny sat with Wes and me. Mr. Carl Carter, I'm Jean Albrook. I will represent your wife in this matter. From what she told me, you completely ruined her, so I'm taking her case pro bono. Let me start by saying that these conditions are unacceptable. She ended her initial tirade. Miss Albrook, let me point out that I have enough evidence to convince any judge and jury of my point of view. They show my soon-to-be ex-wife planning with her lover to put a spell on me. It was her proposal, too. For the record, I do not adhere to this lifestyle and never will. Given the circumstances, I believe that my offer is more than fair. I finished, leaning back in my chair. Where is this proof? Asked Miss Albrook. Wes, thank God, had launched the DVD he had recorded of the last 2 sessions between Samantha and the doctor. It also had footage from my pocket recorder and video from my iPhone onto DVD. The video showed how they planned it all, with her playing the role of a confused and helpless victim wanting to explore her sexuality, with Dr. Sislinder egging her on. Then it switched to my recording when I walked in and found them together. Then an iPhone video of them having sex on our marital bed. Then I pulled him off her and threw him on the floor. I've got the rest if you want, Wes said with a triumphant smile. Just say the word and I'll make copies of everything for you. Gloria Jur looked like she would rather be anywhere else than here at this moment. She looked at the proposal I had Wes prepare. Actually, it was pretty fair considering everything I had been through. She would have received $75,000 and a payment on her car. She would have her things, which she could take at my discretion, and an apartment paid for by me for the whole year. There were no children, so there was no provision for child support. There is no alimony either. I refused to pay her until she got married again. But the apartment was really good. After consulting with Samantha, Gloria's younger clone looked at me. We agree, Mr. Carter. Wise decision, I smiled. We signed everything in the right places, Jean certified the documents, and they were to be presented to the judge in 30 days. Those 30 days went by so slowly that I wanted to tear my hair out. Every day Danny and I kissed like teenagers, but I still couldn't fully move on to being intimate with her. I wanted this, as you can probably imagine, but I was stubborn, or as some might say, stupid. By the end, I was more inclined to think that I was stupid. The day of judgment has finally arrived. We hadn't had an affair since the Linder case, so it was excruciating waiting for the clock to tick down until we could officially be together. When the judge hit the gavel, I hugged Danny and kissed her so hard our heads were spinning. Sammy came up to us when we broke away from each other. "I'm sorry, Nick. For everything it's worth, I ruined the best thing I ever had." She was on the verge of tears, looking at Danny. "Danny, please take care of him, and don't be stupid like I was." "Sammy, I fell in love with Nick from the moment I saw him for the first time. I kept my distance because he loved you with all his heart. I kept my distance because you were my friend too. You're both still my friends, but when you did what you did to him, I couldn't stand by anymore. And I'm not sorry either. I love this man and I promise I will take care of him for the rest of our lives," Danny said in surprise, but it also surprised Sammy, and she hugged her friend tightly. Danny moved in with me within the 30-day wait. It was something we could do while I waited for my stubbornness to wear off, or for the divorce to come. So when we got home that day after the trial, I took off my old wedding ring and threw it on the coffee table before picking Danny up and carrying her into our bedroom. "Oh, Pappy," she laughed as I threw her on the bed and got naked in a matter of seconds. She also undressed, which didn't take long. It took 2.5 years for the full impact of my nuclear attack on Dr. Dennis Linder to wear off, and many people felt the effects in one way or another. Several couples who were torn apart by the jerk's actions eventually reconciled and remarried after receiving compensation for oven negligence claims. Fine, good for them. I heard from Samantha shortly after all medical malpractice claims and classic claims went to trial against Dr. Diptard. Anyway, Samantha now lives in Vegas and has become a dominatrix. Looks like this is right up her alley with the crap Linder uncovered in her psyche. Her parents still don't talk to her thanks to me giving her a surgical blow by sending them a video of her and her lover plotting against me. Well, she brought this on herself. After Janine divorced him, of which she got well over half, all the criminal charges hit old Danny like a ton of bricks. He did everything he could but lost his license and, after completing all the lawsuits, was forced to declare bankruptcy. However, this did not prevent all those whom he offended from receiving due compensation. It just delayed it a little. Someone who will remain anonymous paid the good doctor a visit one evening before his criminal trial began. Whoever this man was, he beat Dr. Dustjabag so badly that he had to be hospitalized for several weeks. Wes and Janine dated for 6 months and got along so well that they got married, with me as best man and Danny as maid of honor. Wes made enough from all the lawsuits to retire and they planned to spend their golden years together. The trial was largely open and shut as Dr. Jerk's lawyer was unable to get video evidence of Asilio seducing all of these women. He was found guilty on all counts. When Danny the boy went to prison, he only lasted 2 days before guards found him hanging in his cell. It seems he fell so low and so fast that he decided to hang himself rather than face the ruins of his life. Fine. One less problem for society. The scumbag who had ruined so many lives was now literally hanging by a rope. Fitting, if you ask me. With his passing and since he never changed his will, Janine was only too happy to use her large inheritance funds to settle with those whose lives her now deceased ex-husband had ruined. As for Danny and me, we got along well thanks to my claims. $15 million in total. $15 million, I said, pressing my little finger to the corner of my mouth. We are now also retired and raising our 2 children. Our son, Nicholas, since Danny insisted on giving him his full name, which I, of course, immediately agreed to, has already become a real fidget and will be starting kindergarten next year. Isabel, our daughter, is the sweetest child I have ever seen. We are happy now. This case, my last case, was a mixed bag for me but everything ended well. End. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you and go ahead and listen to the next story because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.